We'll call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of February 3rd. We'll note that all commissioners are present. The first item of business is the order of business. Are there any changes to the order of business?
Mr. President, I do have two changes, items that will be removed from the agenda. Under item 8, community development, item C, there are two development agreements. Both of those development agreements will be pulled from tonight's agenda.
The Lamont and the Pinecrest?
Yes.
Okay. Also, I'm going to add a 5:10 timetable agenda item, and that'll be John Cameron from Senator Hoven's office. He'd like to address the commission. Are there any other changes? Hearing none, would there be a motion to approve the order of business as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. So the motion carries. That brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss? Not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. That brings us to the non-timetable agenda, item 4A, the State Avenue overpass. I noted with interest that the commission, in my absence, voted 2-2, 2 votes for alternative 5, 2 votes for alternative 1, and then the public has been waiting to see what I decide, and I'm not going to vote for either alternative. We had the good fortune this afternoon to meet with the HDR engineers and the North Dakota DOT, and they have proposed an alternative 6, we're calling it, which essentially moves the spur approximately 75 feet to the south, and in doing so makes the First Street intersection possible. We have a map up. Okay. Mr. Kubas, you have a good view of the map. You were at the meeting. Maybe you can explain the map to the public, and I'll slide to the side here.
Well, the map, and we have maybe 2 variations of this option that President Johnson was describing. But in essence, the spur line that's directly east of Dickinson Ready Mix, right there would be moved to the south 75 feet. And then all the bridge components could also move to the south 75 feet. And the intersection at First Street could remain at grade. Right now, with all the other options we were looking at, the roadway would be elevated at First Street, thus cutting off First Street access for all the businesses and the traveling public. This option, what we're calling option 6, would allow that intersection to remain, providing access to the 2 businesses that were in question, the Bible Church and the UPS store, and it also allows American Welding and Gas on the east side of State Avenue to continue with their access out onto State Avenue. So we feel that option 6, as it's been presented to us by the DOT and by HDR, really brings some resolution to our business access that we've been debating here for the better part of a couple months now.
So, do you have any questions for Mr. Kubas or Mr. Kessel, who was also part of the teleconference?
I just have one question. There will be a median in between, so then with the medicine shop, there would be hypothetically access to their drive up heading north, but not south, right? Or is it?
As it's proposed right now, the median would not be in place between Villard and First Street.
Okay, so then there would be access to that?
If I could just revise that a little, there won't be a raised median. There'll be a painted median there that will, it's supposed to signify no left turn.
Okay.
but there won't be a physical barrier from making that left turn.
So if you're obeying the law, you could go to the drive up heading north, just not heading south.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, I think this option is pretty fresh, and I don't know that the engineers have had time to work out all the details, but I think they're at the point where they pretty much feel there's no game killers here that to stumble on. But as Mr. Kubis stated, there's two variations to that. This one with the offset alignment for States Avenue and one with the alignment. And I think there are some engineering details that with each alternative they haven't worked through yet, especially on the southern end of the bridge. So tonight, what I would recommend that we do, since we have a 2-2 tie, plus we're on the record for favoring option 1, I would suggest we simply pass a motion rejecting both options 1 and 5, and then we pass a motion endorsing option 6, but not picking whether we're aligned or non-aligned, because we frankly don't have the information yet to actually pick one of those. And there is an email handed out to you that lists some of the pros and cons as HDR kind of sees them initially on the alignments. But on the surface, it really looks to me like this option 6 comes closest to the least amount of disruption to the people in the area, and is closer to a win-win than the other options. So that would be my recommendation.
Mr. President,
Mr. Steiner.
I do have one question for Mr. Kubis. In the realigned spur, you talk about the disadvantage of impacts the Dickinson Ready Mix rail operations. Can you enlighten us on that?
Well, again, in preliminary discussions, not with the city, but through the DOT and their engineer with Dickinson Ready Mix, the spur being realigned further to the south, closer to the mainline tracks. You can see right now there's a building on the west side of State Avenue there that the tracks now go on the north side of. With that realignment, it would go on the south side of, so they'd have to work through just I guess the geometry of how they're going to get the spur line connected back to where it needs to go, where they have all their aggregate operations with their gravel and their sand. But those would be issues that would really be, if the spur is realigned, it'd be worked through the project, but it's essentially it's off the project already. It would be on private property, and that would be just through some negotiation with Dickinson Ready Mix.
Are there any other questions? Would there be a motion then regarding the rejection of options 1 and 5?
I would make the motion as you stated earlier with all of its components.
I'll second it.
Okay. So as I understand the motion, then it's to reject options 1 and 5. Motion has been seconded. Are there other comments or questions that you'd like to make?
Does this motion then include our desire for option 6?
I thought we would just do that as a separate
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
Other comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote then on this motion. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Again, option 6 isn't completely designed out, but the DOT would like some indication from us tonight if we do favor that option, if we can endorse it in concept, and they'll continue to work on the engineering details. Mr. Kubis, anything you'd want to add to that?
Like you'd mentioned, President Johnson. With the shifted alignment versus the alignment being at grade, there are pros and cons to each, and I don't know that as city staff we've had much of a chance to weigh that. I think the DOT's consultant has been feverishly looking at this for the last 4 or 5 days and just came up with a list of engineering concerns today, really. So we need to take a look at those two before I could weigh in too strongly. I know we have some city utilities, water and sewer, that'll be affected by the shift. Several other issues too, right-of-way being one of them with the shifted alignment. We might have some more right-of-way impacts. So we'll evaluate that, and I think the DOT will be moving forward with this either way with option 6 if that's the recommendation from the commission.
Mr. Kubas, one other question. On the option 6, does Dickinson Ready Mix still have access? Would this be a secondary access to their east side property?
Commissioner Steiner, the access you're referring to underneath the structure, yes, that would still exist essentially the same way it was before. The only difference now is the access would be moved further to the north onto BN property, but it would still be the same access. They're looking at just a 16-foot gravel single lane access to connect their properties.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we endorse option 6 with the alignment and other details yet to be determined.
Okay.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Well, I favor this option because nobody's being landlocked. That was my concern on the other options. So.
I guess another reason why this came into play, this option, is as they started looking at the construction period, they came to the conclusion that this construction was likely going to take 2 seasons now as opposed to 1. And with a longer construction period, they felt they had then the time to deal with the spur realignment. And actually, when you think about this, I mean this bridge will last upwards of 100 years. And if it takes us 2 construction seasons to construct it, I think that's okay. It would be better to have a longer construction period, have a much better start to this project. So I think this gives us a chance to do it well as opposed to doing it fast, and that's a good thing for us. So, Mr. Kessel, you were at the meeting. You also had a chance to follow up afterwards with a conversation with an official from the North Dakota DOT. Is there anything else you'd want to add?
President Johnson, I think you and Engineer Kubis have summed it up well. You know, the endorsement of option 6 this evening, assuming that the vote does go that way, is exactly what the DOT is looking for. And we can refine that option later, probably at our next City Commission meeting. We can present a much more detailed synopsis of the impacts of the on or off alignment choices that fall within option 6.
I think when option 6 is more complete in its engineering detailed design, we'd certainly invite comment from the public then at the public meeting, and I'm sure we'll hear comments in between meetings too, but this on the surface appears to be a much better option. So, any other comments? We do have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and vote then. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. Okay, it's 4:45, and we have a timetable agenda item, and that's to hear from Cattermas Lee Jackson, an update of our water and road projects. Is there anything else that Mr. Kubas that you'd like to say in way of introduction here? this item?
Yes, President, Commission, we've tasked KLJ with several projects, including street and water projects, and this will be an update in Google Earth to go through those projects and how they lay out and really how they'll affect a good portion of the city in the upcoming construction season.
Yeah, it's working. Well, good evening, President Johnson, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. Brent Molson with KLJ, and I have the privilege of overseeing KLJ's efforts on a lot of these different projects that we're doing for the city. We're going to go on a tour very shortly here, but we've been working very closely with city staff and to make sure things are aligning on these projects, and that's been good. We've had some great communications going, and I think we're starting to see some really good decisions be made, and we're going to share some of those with you tonight. I think these decisions are going to allow the city to make sure it's taking care of its needs that it needs to address today and allow you to do some of the things you desire to do in the future. We are going to take a tour tonight. We're going to use Google Earth and take you around the city, and that way you can kind of see where some of these things are actually occurring within your city. It's kind of a different way to make a presentation, but it's let's see, I have a couple things I want to try and grab here. Everything's loading the way it's supposed to or not. Yeah, we're okay. First thing we're going to talk about is we're going to start with the water projects. And the first thing we're going to talk about is a finished water pump station. This is a project that you're doing in conjunction with the Southwest Water Authority. And to me, this particular pumping station is really a godsend for your system. This station, once it's completed, all the water that enters into your distribution system will come through this pump station. There's going to be 4 pump bays there. 3 of them will be dedicated for the city of Dickinson's usage. A little bit different configuration. This is the 6 million gallon reservoir that sits here today. When the plant makes water in the future, it's actually going to take water and pump it to this reservoir. This reservoir now becomes the feed for this pumping station. A little bit different arrangement. There's been some piping conflicts and so forth that doesn't allow the water in this 6 million gallon reservoir to be used as readily as you'd like it. So once this pumping station goes online and that 6 million gallons is full, you have 6 million gallons of water that's available not only for the city but for the Southwest Authority as well. So it's going to be a kind of a, let's say, a added feature for the city. And this pump station really, like I said, it's your command center. All your water is going to enter into your system through these pumping stations or the pumps within this station. So it's, like I said, it's really a godsend for the community. The next major thing that we see will be taking place is we have a 24-inch water line that works its way through the city, goes west on Broadway, goes back up to the business loop, and then it goes all the way to the north of the interstate. And what's good about this line is you now have another way to get water to the north side of Dickinson. The only way you can get water to the north side of Dickinson is way over on the east side along 10th Avenue. So this gives you another route. Also, we'll have a lot more capacity utilizing this system. And last year already, because of all the activity that was going on, we actually installed some water lines already. There's an 18-inch tie from the tower that sits up on the tower on the hill west of 30th Avenue. We installed this line along with the construction of 30th Avenue that the DOT undertook. So these lines are already in, and these lines helped deliver more water to this portion of the city. Let's see if it kicks in here pretty quick, and that allowed the whole Menards complex to enhance this whole area for the development that's occurring here. So again, it's where a lot of things are occurring that just keep adding to the system. The next major project that'll be done then is we finish off this 18-inch line from the intersection of 30th and 15th, heads backwards to the west. It'll provide more water for the developing areas, north side of the West Ridge and also the Pinecrest subdivisions. This line takes us up to where the new tank will be built, and that lies within the Pinecrest subdivision. Sits up there on top of a hill. Again, this provides another 1 million gallons of storage for the north side of Dickinson. With this in place, you'll have 2 million gallons of storage on the north side of Dickinson, and we'll also have the pumping capabilities to be able to get that water to the north side. The next thing that happens then, we have a 16-inch line that continues east along 21st Street, ties into the system. There's a 14-inch main here, we tie into that, and then this continues north up to 40th, providing more water source for these developing areas and these developing areas that are already there. And right now, it's hopes that all this stuff will be online the fall of 2014. Then another major component of the water distribution system is a 24-inch line that leaves from the finished water pump station and heads east to 10th Avenue. This allows us to get a lot more water out to the east side of Dickinson. It continues to feed this loop that pumps water up onto the north side, so we have a good source for that. And there's still an awful lot of area to the east of Dickinson that needs more water in the future. You know, I'm certainly, someday you're going to see developments in these areas. This is continuing to fill in, so we need to be able to get more water to the east side of Dickinson. This line also feeds the main section of Dickinson as well. So when it gets all said and done, you know, these are some of the main improvements that you'll see to your distribution system. Hopefully everything will be online 2014 or early 2015. There's one more key component to the water distribution system, and it's called your SCADA system. Basically, it stands for your Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System. Where the finished water pump station is your command center, the SCADA system is really the brains of the operation. It allows you to operate this in an automatic mode. The city has such a system today. Unfortunately, it's outlived its life by many, many years. It just can't keep up. So, and good news is, as part of one of your projects, your SCADA system is being bid, and I just bring that to your attention again, that how important that will be to the operation of your system once it goes online. That SCADA system is going to have to help operate a lot of things in an automatic and efficient manner. From the water standpoint, the key components that we just, you know, really hope that can become reality is that finished water pump station. We really need that to be online. The 24-inch line out to the west, finishing off the new northwest tower, making sure that gets in place, and then your new SCADA system. With those components in your system, you could go a long ways. It'd be great to have everything, but and I hope that's the way it turns out. But those are the four main things we see for your water distribution system. I was going to tell you, you know, feel free to ask any questions as we take this tour. If there's anything you want to ask about the water, I can try to answer those right now. If not, we can go on to some of your transportation projects. But it gives you a good idea of some of where things are going to be happening within your city this summer.
Did you say the pump station is that started construction?
No. Plans are being finished as we speak. We'll be going through final review with the city probably within the next couple of weeks. And they hope to bid that by at least early part of March, so they can get on construction. You'll see major construction on that this summer. Yeah. Like I said, it's a joint effort between yourselves and Southwest, and it's couldn't happen at a better time. Some of the main key roadways, we'll zoom in on those, and some of the line work just didn't come in quite the way we wanted it to, but I think this will give you a pretty good indication. Empire Road will be reconstructed from this intersection. It'll come down and curves in now and ties into Fairway here. So when this is in place, the existing connection to the east or the west business loop will no longer be there. Empire actually come down and tie in like this. And this is a joint roadway project between the City of Dickinson and the St. Joseph's Hospital. Out in the same area, Willer Circle is being constructed by the hospital direct on it by themselves. And this provides a lot more access for the developing properties along this west side, and particularly this area. There's been a lot of conversations about some more medical facilities in this area. It gives you a pretty good feel for what this will look like when it gets done. The next major roadway, 15th Street, will be your first connection off of the new 30th out there. The first half mile of 15th from 30th back to the west, the first half mile will be construction. This allows more access to the West Ridge properties and also the developing areas of the Pinecrest. Again, hopefully this will all be in place by the end of the summer. The next major roadway project is 21st Street. And that kind of comes across the north side of the city. Excuse the line when we blow it up, but what this really gives you is great connectivity across the north side of the city. 15th and 21st will be 3-lane roadways. Urban section, storm sewer, water, that whole thing will be part of that. That 16-inch water main that you saw earlier will be part of this project. One thing I do want to point out to you on this intersection, we took this picture late last fall so you can see some of the construction that's underway in this intersection. During the design of this intersection was moved to the south, the intersection of 21st and 30th, so it is offset about 65 feet to the south. So when you do drive this in the future, you are going to see that there is a bend in the road where it takes you back to the south, and the same thing happens on the west side. I just want to point that out. This whole intersection got moved to the south, so there will be kind of a jog or just a slight bend. I don't think you really notice it, but it will be there. Next major project then in your transportation system is State Avenue. Again, this provides a lot of access to a lot of things that are developing. You certainly have all the stuff up within the Cook subdivisions, both sides of the road. This will be where your new, let me say this right, public safety facility center will be constructed. So again, this gives you good access. This again will be a 3-lane roadway. 21st and State will have a multi-use path as part of that project, so it gives more, it isn't just for cars, it's also for your walking public too to some degree. So that's a big part of that. Another major roadway project that will be done in this area too is the extension of 10th Avenue. From the new school area, it gives you a good connection back up to 40th. Again, providing access not only to some of the development, what's there, but also what could possibly be here to the east. So that roadway will be constructed by the end of the year too. The next project you have on your list is 40th Street. And what 40th Street does, it provides a hard surface access to already a very heavily developed area. It too will be a 3-lane section. There's also another major component of this street, and it's the storm sewer. There has to be a major outfall line from the storm sewer system that ties back into the ponds that you've seen along 4th Avenue. The city actually owns both these ponds. As part of this project, these ponds will be combined into one, and a new outfall will have to be put in place to allow the flows to pass down the existing drainage way once this is done. And what makes this one kind of interesting is that you have an awful lot of area outside of the city that all works its way to 40th Avenue, and we have to take care of. The storm sewer system on 40th is designed for a 10-year event, meaning that up to that point, everything should be able to stay within the storm sewer piping. We get events larger than that. We're actually going to see some surfacing of the storm water, and everything's being designed that the overflow route, this actually here is 2nd Avenue and 40th. This will be your low point during those high events. Water will have to move down this street and across this street and into these ponds, and that'll be an overland flow condition. These pipes would have been enormous to try to take care of that in any other manner. The thing that the city's going to do as these properties start to come into the city, I think you can do a lot of things with detention on this side that will just continue to help this situation going forward. The more detention you get over here before we have to deal with it on this side will just make this system work that much better. Okay. Like I said, these lines get a little big when you go out, but gives you a pretty good idea of some of the where all your activity is going to be occurring this summer. And I really like 21st because it really provides that connectivity all the way back to Highway 22 and all the way over to 10th Avenue. So went through this stuff quicker than I thought, but I sure would be willing to try to answer any questions you might have or go back and
Brian, can you give us an idea on bid lettings for some of this stuff? I suppose next 3, 4, 5 months, we're going to be pretty heavy with bid lettings.
the 24-inch line, we're ready from a plan perspective to go to bid. We're dealing with the railroad on some right-of-way issues, and we still have to get Federal Highways approval to bore underneath the interstate. As soon as we get those, and we're talking days, not months here. That's all in the works. As soon as we get that, then we can go to bid. So that 24-inch line is ready to bid. The finished water pump station will be bid this spring. The tank, I think we'll have that ready. That should be ready to go in March. This 18-inch tie, that'll be part of this, will be done as part of the 15th Street project. And then this connection from here up to here is actually being done by the developer of the Pinecrest. So again, this tie back over, that should all be in place by the end of the year, and we're ready to bid on all those. 21st Street, we have to finalize some right-of-way, but other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. We'll be able to get these bid. Did this help you see where things are at?
This was excellent.
Yeah.
I think it's a great presentation. It helps us as commissioners, and I'm sure as this is viewed on Channel 19, it's really going to help inform the public some of the infrastructure projects that are taking place this year. So.
Yeah, and then I forgot to mention on the 24-inch that goes east along Broadway, of all the projects, that one's going to have the most effect on people and businesses. And as part of that construction effort, we're going to put some, really work with the contractor. He's going to have to keep people informed, the whole construction sequencing and so forth. That's the project that's really going to affect a lot of people's lives, both businesses and personal. So, but we've got to get that pipe out there. And like I said, it'd been nice if some of these improvements would have been in there in the past, but it is what it is, and now we got to move forward. So if we get them in place, you'll be able to do a lot of things here.
So, other comments by commissioners or other additional questions? No, this was a great update. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hope to be back soon on a few others.
Okay. Well, we have a 5 o'clock timetable agenda item, and that's our municipal court quarterly report. Mr. Colling, do you want to make any introductory remarks?
Mr. President, Commissioners, to give the municipal court quarterly report is Becky Grant. She is the attorney from Ebeltoft Sickler Lawyers that handles our municipal prosecution for us, and I will let her give her report.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Grant.
Thank you. Mr. President, City Commissioners, my name is Becky Grant. I'm an associate attorney at Ebeltoft Sickler. Been managing the municipal prosecution contract for the past 2 years. The purpose of the memorandum that we submitted and this presentation is to update you all on the status of that contract as we are already came to a close on our 2nd year of prosecution duties for the city. As always, please interrupt me if you have any questions as I proceed through the slides. As you are all aware, we began prosecuting for the City of Dickinson on January 1st, 2012. The 2013 third quarter report was before the Commission on November 4th, 2013. Our firm has opened and prosecuted over 1,531 files, and currently we have 535 active files. The cumulative number of traffic and criminal citations issued over the course of 2013 is comparable to that were issued in 2012. This slide offers a comparison between the amount of criminal citations that have been issued over the past 3 years for all 12 months. And this slide is just meant to give you an idea of how the year ebbed and flowed. I have some more specific cumulative information in the upcoming slides. The amount of fines and fees that were ordered by municipal court in 2013 has increased from that ordered in 2012. This slide again offers a comparison between the past 3 years for all 12 months. The next few slides offer a comparison of the cumulative totals for 2011, 2012, and 2013. This first slide contains the comparison of the cumulative totals for traffic citations. As you can see, 2012 was just slightly higher than that of 2013. There's a difference of 53 tickets. The next slide contains a comparison of the cumulative totals for criminal citations. As you can see again, the 2012 column is just slightly higher than that of 2013. There's a difference of 26 more criminal charges filed in 2012 than in 2013. This final slide contains a comparison of the cumulative totals for the past 3 years for court fines and fees that have been ordered. As you can see, 2013 is the highest year. That total is approximately, well, just over $60,000 higher than 2012. We continue to handle municipal prosecution matters by appearing in court 3 times per week. This slide contains a schedule of court times and types of appearances that we continue to do on behalf of the City of Dickinson. Our firm handled 2 jury trials and 7 bench trials on municipal court matters during 2013. We were able to obtain convictions in all of these trials. Currently, there are no trials scheduled on municipal court matters. We've continued to provide the Commission with information regarding the remand process that we initiated in January of 2012. If any members of the Commission have any questions about that process, I'd be happy to answer them. For 2012, we remanded 144 cases. Those remanded cases generated $63,565 for the City of Dickinson. For 2013, we remanded 132 cases, and those remanded cases generated $70,705 for the City of Dickinson. Currently, we're reviewing several criminal complaint requests that were recently submitted by officers. We expect to make those charging determinations within the week. And that's all the information I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Any comments or questions regarding the municipal prosecutions?
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
No, I think this is working well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, we have a 5:10 timetable item, and that is to hear from Senator Hovind's Western North Dakota representative, Mr. John Cameron. So welcome.
President Johnson, members of the commission, thank you for letting me speak. This is actually the best voice I've had in the last 4 days. I was diagnosed with a sinus infection, so I'm going to be a man of few words tonight. But Senator Hovind wanted to send his greetings to the citizens of Dickinson, and I just kind of want to give you a little highlight of what's happening in the Senate this week. Tomorrow is a scheduled vote on the Farm Bill. It passed the House, as you know, last week, and they're scheduled to vote on that tomorrow. Senator Hoeven was working very hard on that in the last couple of years and was actually on the conference committee. So we're pretty excited about that. Also tomorrow, Senator Hoeven and Senator Landrieu of Louisiana will be hosting a press conference with several other senators and some people from the industry to encourage the president on a swift approval of the Keystone Pipeline. As you know, Senator Hoeven has also been working very diligently on that for quite some time. I think the initial permit was applied for about 6 years ago. As you may know, that last week the State Department issued another fairly positive report on that, and so we're just going to wait and see what happens there. Senator Landrieu is co-hosting this with Senator Hoeven. There's going to be probably a shift of some Senate committee chairmen, kind of a little musical chairs. Senator Baucus from Montana is scheduled, I believe, Tuesday or even Thursday to be confirmed by the Senate for the ambassador to China. Senator Baucus currently is the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. When he vacates that, Senator Wyden from Oregon, who is currently the chair of Energy and Natural Resources, will take over the chair of Finance, and Senator Landrieu will take over the chair of Energy and Natural Resources. So that's why she and Senator Hoeven will be hosting that committee, that press conference tomorrow. So again, a busy week in the Senate, a lot of things going on and a lot of activity that Senator Hoeven's been working on for citizens of North Dakota. And again, just wanted to send your greetings, and if you have any questions, I'd try to answer them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Are there any comments or questions for the Senator's representative? All right, thank you for being here. Okay, we'll go back to the non-timetable agenda. Item B is the GIS workshop, and I believe Assessor Hirschfeld will present on this item.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. Tonight we're bringing an unbudgeted contract to you. This contract with GIS Workshop is for a continuation of services that we started last year. In essence, it is creating parcel layers that deals with any split combinations that we have of properties. Anything that deals with the parcel layers and what's viewable on the website is what we're asking them to handle as we continue with our staffing of these services. This contract not only assists our department, but it is something that engineering, the public works, and planning also utilizes. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any comments or questions for the assessor? So you're requesting approval of this, I guess, contract?
That is correct, yes.
Is there a motion regarding this item?
Mr. President, move to approve contract as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That brings us to item C. This be introduced by Mr. Kessel. It's regarding the Public Safety Center. So, Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Johnson and Commission. Tonight we have a contract before you from Braun. The contract is to do some test wells on the site of the Public Safety Center. They want to better understand the soil content prior to construction. They'll be checking for large boulders, rocks, or any subsurface conditions that may affect the construction of the Public Safety Center, associated outbuildings, parking lots, and access roads. This is a very typical construction-related expense, and it is recommended that we approve the contract this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kessel. You've heard his introduction and recommendation. Are there any comments or questions? Would there be a motion regarding his recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve his recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Mr. Kessel, we'll let you continue with your reports.
Thank you, President Johnson. Commission, my next report is on the Wells Fargo term sheet. Was included in your packet. The term sheet is just a way of letting you know that we are seeking to finance a lot of those projects that you heard from Mr. Malsom today. I've also provided you a revision of the capital improvement or infrastructure improvement plan, which I'll go over in a little bit. But I just wanted to make sure that that we're singing off the same hymnal, so to speak, with regards to some of the financing. The Wells Fargo bond would be a $20 million bond. It would finance a few of the projects, the public safety or public works building, the finished water pump station that Mr. Malsom mentioned, 40th Street utility improvements, which were also on his list, and the West Side water storage. They're very interested in water-related projects, so all of those projects have a component at a minimum to do with water. The security for this bond would be a 50% of the 1% sales tax collections and a lien on enterprise revenue. Just to remind you, we've issued a bond, we've obtained financing for our wastewater reclamation facility and our influent pump station, and we have dedicated enterprise revenues to the repayment of that SRF loan. So we're going to refine exactly what requirements will be met or needed in terms of additional security, but primarily it'll be the 50% of the 1% sales tax. We're looking at a 10-year amortization schedule and an interest rate that will be north of 2.5% and south of 3%. Until we get a little bit closer to obligating the city with this loan, we won't be able to nail down that exact interest rate. So, and this term sheet does not require a vote this evening. It is simply for your education. And if you have any questions with regards to the term sheet, the projects, or the financing. I also want to let you know that we are working with American Bank Center on a similar loan or bond. It'll be slightly less dollar value, probably looking in that $15 million range. And we're working with probably our most important financing partner, which is the state of North Dakota. And as early as today, President Johnson and I met with some of our legislative representatives to express our needs and desires related to the upcoming session. We'll continue to have these kinds of meetings in the future, and we'll most likely expand our audience as the session nears and refine our ask of what's going to happen. We are meeting, or I am part of the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties Board, and we are also meeting this week to refine the position of that coalition of counties, schools, cities, and local political subdivisions. So unless there's any questions about the Wells Fargo term sheet, that would conclude my report on that topic. If there are none, then what I'd like to do is turn your attention to the capital improvement and infrastructure plan that I have presented to you. Again, this is a ongoing document that will change as we bid these projects out. In some cases, our estimates have been long, and in some estimates, they have been short in terms of what the bid projects are. But again, just to kind of walk you through the document, they're all prioritized. So the first project will get priority funding, and the last project on here will be the last funded project. Now, there are some things that are not yet prioritized that we have yet to move up. And one of those that I'd like to make particular attention to tonight is the one titled DPR/Reclaim Line and Highway 10 Sewer Lift Station. DPR stands for Dakota Prairie Refinery, and they are constructing a wastewater line that will connect the refinery with the city of Dickinson and our treatment process. This is also the same line that will connect the city of South Hart to the city of Dickinson and our refinement process. Our original agreement with DPR said that they would pay for that line and that lift station, and that we would use fees, the fees that we would charge them on a monthly basis as a way of repaying for the cost of overage, the oversizing of that line. They have approached us and said that at the origination of the project, that was going to be about a $2 million wet well type or style of lift station. Because of the oversizing that's been required and a few other technical details, we're now going to a dry style lift station, and the price has gone up from a cap of about 2.5 million to a cap of right now about 5 million. That has been concerning to the refinery, and they've asked us to cap their exposure at about 2.5 million, and that we would take on the expenses after that. So you'll notice that we're carrying that line item now in our capital improvement budget to cover those costs above 2.5 million. We are going to memorialize the change. We have not yet done that. And I'll turn to Attorney Colling if you'd like to make any comments related to that project.
Mr. President, Commissioners, just to follow up on that, we did have a teleconference with some representatives from DPR this afternoon to talk through some of the details. We anticipate bringing before you an amendment to the wastewater agreement that we have with DPR in order to cover some of the oversizing costs of this particular lift station. Right now, they're anticipating going out to bid on the lift station on Wednesday. That's when their bid opening would be. And the engineer's estimate for that lift station is about $4.1 million at this point. They have asked to cap their exposure, as Mr. Kessel indicated, at $2.5 million. So maybe about a $1.6 million expenditure that will need to be included in our capital improvement plan. Depends on how bids come in and whether they're within the engineer's estimate or not. But at this point, that's about what we're anticipating adding to the capital improvement plan at this point.
And then one final comment, even though it hasn't been prioritized, it most likely will fall in what's termed Priority 3, which is an economic development project, could even be higher if the commission deems appropriate. So the funding stream, or the funding priority would be probably fall within that 6 to 15 range once it's revised. So, any questions about that project or the SIP plan? I have one additional item then that I would need to inform the commission tonight, and I have regretfully have to tell you that Finance Director Tina Johnson has submitted her resignation and will be moving on. I'm obviously disappointed. I wish her well. It's obviously bittersweet when things like this happen. She's been an important asset to the city of Dickinson for 7 years at least, if not 8, and she will be missed. We appreciate the fact that she's given us until February 28th to develop a plan to try and fill her large shoes. But I have to regretfully inform you of that this evening. And she's really excited to come up and talk to you about it. So if you have any questions, you could direct those to Ms. Johnson. If not, that would conclude my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. We'll move down then to engineering. Mr. Kubas, you've got some project updates?
Well, I think Mr. Melsom has covered most of the project updates. One thing I'd like to brief the commission on, though, is some discussions we've been having internally on a project or projects that we hope will be coming up in the next several months. And those would be lighting projects for some of our subdivisions. Through the busyness of it all over the past few years, streetlights have kind of fallen through the cracks on some of our subdivisions, and we've been getting inquiries from some of the new residents in these subdivisions if and when their streetlights would be installed. Typically in the past, this had been installed through our local utility companies, whether it's MDU or Rough Rider, depending on the location. Right now, we need to meet as city staff, but we want to move forward with these projects because we do feel it's a public safety issue, that lighting should be installed, especially in these residential neighborhoods. So we'll be meeting as a staff in the near future this week, as a matter of fact, to start putting these together. We have at least a couple subdivisions where we're looking at installing lighting. Right now, entertaining the idea of a lighting improvement district, to do a special improvement district for lighting, but still entertaining all options to fund those projects. So just to give you a heads up that hopefully will be a project that we'll see constructed this year for those subdivisions.
In the future, are we requiring the developers to include lighting if the utility companies aren't doing it?
That is the intent, yes.
That's the intent, okay.
On the lighting that we'll be installing, then we're in charge of maintenance as well on any lighting that we install.
Yes.
But, and then we take over responsibility as developers put lighting in as well?
That has been the case in the past, yeah, when the lighting has been the city's responsibility. The payment for the utility bills and the maintenance, the upkeep, replacing bulbs.
Whether the utility put them in or?
Correct.
Okay.
That's all I have, unless you have any more questions for the engineering department.
Okay, I think you're also giving the public works reports and handling item A there for the West Gravity Sewer improvements?
I am. The city had received bids for the West Gravity Sewer Improvement Project. I believe you had that in your packet about where that project lies. Generally, though, it's along the same route or a similar route as the West Side Water Main Project, following along the business loop. And bids were received. We had 10 bids on the project. The low bid was $1.86 million. The engineer's estimate was, the low bid was $1.18 million. The engineer's estimate was $1.86 million. And the high bid was $2.17 million. Our consultant on the project, Apex, has reviewed the bids and recommends award to the low bid, which was Kindred Plumbing and Heating. And the exact amount on that bid was $1,182,404.
So you're looking for a motion then for us to accept and award the bid?
Correct.
To Kindred Plumbing?
To Kindred Plumbing and Heating, correct. Upon that recommendation and motion, we would prepare the contract documents with Apex to get a notice of award out to that contractor.
Would there be such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
And so we have the motion, the second. Any discussion now regarding this item?
Just one note, Mr. President. It's interesting to see that, you know, the West with our oil situation here is benefiting the eastern side of the state also. So I know there's talk about the east side saying they're not getting enough of the oil revenues and so on, but, you know, our good fortune out here, so to speak, is also applying to the east side of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Any other comments? Okay, we have the motion and the second. We'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Dukart?
Aye.
Mr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. You have any project updates that you want to make?
None at this time, no.
Okay. Are there any questions for the city engineer? All right, well, we'll move to tab 8, community development. Mr. Curtin, we'll let you take us through these items.
Mr. President, Commissioners, the first item on the agenda is the final plat for Dickinson Hills subdivision. This is located in the southwestern quadrant of the I-94 exit 59 interchange, and then also at the business loop. It is approximately 93 acres, and the Planning Commission and city staff recommend approval. It consists of 20 lots and 1 stormwater management tract. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Mr. Colon, is this resolution 12?
Yes, Mr. President.
So it's 12, 2014. Okay, any comments or questions regarding this item?
Mr. President, I'll move that we approve the final plat Resolution 12-2014.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Is there other discussion here? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries.
Mr. President, the next item is the final plat for Come and Go Addition. This is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of 10th Avenue East and I-94 Business Loop. The plat is approximately 5.40 acres, consists of 2 lots. The Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval.
Okay, assuming we're going right in order, so this would be Resolution 13-2014. Any comments or questions or motions?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 13-2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries.
Mr. President, the next item is the amendment to the subdivision regulations. These are minor changes, essentially housekeeping measures, as depicted in the adopting ordinance. City staff recommends approval. There is no change from the first reading.
Mr. Colling, anything you want to say about the changes?
Mr. President, Commissioners, I believe a copy of the ordinance changes was distributed to you. It does contain an incorrect number of the ordinance. This would be Ordinance 1541 for adoption. As Mr. Corton indicated, there are no changes to the ordinance from first reading. One thing I did want to point out to you, however, has to do with the issuance of building permits in the extraterritorial zone. You'll notice some strikeout language on the ordinance in front of you. Since the county is issuing building permits in the extraterritorial area, the references to that within our subdivision code needed to be deleted, so that is stricken as you adopt this ordinance. But city staff would recommend approval, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colling. At this time, we'd invite anyone from the public to comment regarding the proposed ordinance 1541. If you'd like to comment, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Anybody for 1541? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment. Are there any comments by city commissioners? Not, would there be a motion regarding second reading and final passage?
I'll move for second reading, 1541.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Item C has been struck. That brings us to item D.
Item D, Mr. President, for your benefit and for the public, last meeting we had the first reading of the sign regulations. At that meeting, we had Mike Derby, who's in the audience, from Dakota Outdoor Advertising. He opposed the ordinance with respect to the continuation of the prohibition of billboards. There was a lengthy discussion from the City Commission at that point. City Commission recommended approval of the first reading with the idea that the applicant would supply some additional information. In front of you tonight, the applicant has supplied some information with respect to digital billboards, and I believe he may have sent an email with respect to some additional information on billboards. Based upon the discussion from last meeting, staff would recommend that instead of having the second reading tonight, that we would take in consideration City Commission's comments, pull the sign ordinance from the agenda, bring it back to Planning Commission, invite the billboard industry to provide any testimony that they want to. Staff would provide some additional input with respect to billboards, and then come back with a recommendation, an amendment, or at least a modification to that, ultimately to the City Commission for your ultimate decision. That would be my recommendation tonight, instead of trying to address the issue for or against billboards at this level. I would suggest we bring it back to the Planning Commission and ultimately for your decision in the future. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Curtin. So are there any comments that commissioners want to make regarding
Mr.
sign
President,
regulations?
there's a couple questions that- I'm sorry.
We'll invite the public too, but
Oh,
I thought
oh.
we'd start with the commission, okay?
You have a say too?
Yeah, we're going to do that, but first I was inviting commissioners if you had comments.
Yes, I do, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Our areas of concerns, Mr. Patan, were that the replacement costs of their signs could not be more than 150%.
That was inaccurate, 50%. I think what happened is you had 100%, and then they added 50 to that, and they got 150. So the way that our code, states it in the last provision under nonconformities of the signs, it states that you can modify or replace a portion of the sign up to 50% of its current value. You could not exceed that if the sign is considered a nonconforming sign, and under a current ordinance, we classify billboards as a prohibited use, therefore they're considered as nonconforming. So if any property owner or sign company wants to come in due to a windstorm or something of that nature and replace less than 50%, they would need to supply us with that information. If they can prove their point, then we would allow that and issue a sign permit to have that modification.
In the request from Mr. Hurd, I think it is.
Mr. Derby?
Are you asking for more billboards at this time? Or are you just asking to improve the current billboards that are out there now? Or are you going to be coming to us and saying we want to put more billboards within the city limits, ETZ, and so on?
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. President, I'd be glad to answer that question. My name's Mike Derby. I'm with Dakota Outdoor Advertising, and the answer is both. That we have two issues. One is the Houston billboards on I-94 that we hope to modify, standardize, and clean up, and that's really where the 50% rule comes in effect. And we will be making that presentation at the Board of Adjustments next week. And I did provide Mr. Corton with the calculus on the how much the modifications are against what the value of the billboards are. And the highest number that we came up with from an independent bid by a separate sign company was 28%. And then they ranged down to 11 or something like that. So to answer your question, there's that issue, and then we have applied for some new digital billboard permits. So the newspaper article said we're replacing some existing billboards with digital. That was also incorrect. We're cleaning some up, and then we applied for some new permits. And to help you today, I do appreciate the process. I did provide information on the lighting aspect. Also, there was a concern about lighting with digitals, and actually they're far less illumination than the traditional bottom-mounted lights. And then I also provided the Federal Highway Administration safety study that just came out recently, and then some background on Daktronics. That's the supplier that we use. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Are there other comments that you'd like to make while you're at the podium?
No, we'll be glad to be, other than yes, we'll be glad to be a part of the process moving forward, and we'll make our pitch next week to the Board of Adjustments.
All right.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jackson.
A couple of things. I think it's important that we repeat and make sure we understand that what Mr. Derby, I think, referred to as cleanup really has nothing to do with the ordinance in front of us. That will come in under the old ordinance. The current ordinance and he's going before the Board of Adjustment to get resolution to that issue. As to Mr. Cruton's suggestion that we take this back to planning and zoning, I can tell you that when we did talk about this at planning and zoning, we didn't have some of this information, and the discussion, my recollection, didn't get into the depth that it appears to be going right now. So I think his suggestion is really a good one. Let this go back to planning and zoning. Let planning and zoning hash it out. We can understand things better through Mr. Cruton, and then eventually it will be back here.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Other comments by commissioners?
Mr. Corton, is this just in regard to the billboards, or you want to?
I would, Commissioner Dukart, I would prefer if you have any additional comments, I could convey those to the Planning Commission, and they could factor that in as any additional modification. So beside the billboard issue, whichever way that you're weighing in on that, if there's any other modifications, comments with respect to our sign, the proposed sign code in front of you, I would prefer to get those comments tonight so I could bring those forward. Otherwise, you could provide those when it comes back in the next couple of months.
Okay. The comments that I'm getting from the public, can I share that?
Yeah, go ahead.
They don't want the big billboards within the city limits, so I didn't know if I should. Okay.
Any specific recommendation or language that you would like to have addressed or at least brought forth to the Planning Commission?
No.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Cruton, just from my point of view, as I see it now, I think I'm okay with what Mr. Derby is requesting or asking of us. However, the other side of that is I'm not so sure about on the number of signs, whether I'm in favor of allowing more highway signs that, on the outside of Dickinson, or especially in the city limits of Dickinson. So if you can take that to plan and zoning, those concerns, I appreciate it.
I have some comments too, I guess. I've had an opportunity to speak with a number of people as I'm out collecting my signatures for the next election, and so we've been talking about the sign issue. First and foremost, people are shocked that we have 50 billboards. And so that is a surprising number. And the general feel that I get is that, one, they would like any existing billboards that we have out there to be updated and cleaned up. If there is a way to take an old billboard down and replace it with an electric billboard, either a 1-for-1, 2-for-1, that would be another good option. I'll give you an example. Last summer we were taking our son to Bismarck. He was getting ready to go on a Rome pilgrimage, and we're in his vehicle listening to his Sirius radio, and the storm clouds are billowing in. And I said, boy, we should switch over to the radio station and see what's going on. Well, I just asked him to stick an 8-track in, because to switch over to a regular radio station. But we did, and there was a tornado on the ground behind us as we were going towards Bismarck. I think that in our community, having some digital signs on the north, the south, the east, and the west, that the CVB or the city could use as the welcoming message to our community. The sign company has stated that they would want to be part of that public service. I think having our public service manager be able to email the sign company saying, whether or if there's an accident at a certain intersection and that should be avoided. I think having our emergency manager be able to contact the sign companies and get that message out would be a benefit to our community too. I guess I agree with you, Carson, that I don't know that more signs, but maybe replacing You know, if 50 is the limit that we've set, then looking at how can we replace those signs with digital and have them strategically placed throughout our community so that they actually become a community service to us as well, would be the direction that I would want you to impart to planning and zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Certainly invite anyone from the public that would like to comment or be part of this discussion. You can do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments too.
My name is Carrie Newman-Ness. Thank you. I'm the CEO at Newman Signs in Jamestown. I live in Jamestown. I am happy to hear Mr. Cortone's suggestion that you go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and that the industry, get possibly a spot at the table. We would appreciate the chance to help with the code, have our input heard, and we'd be happy to attend the meetings. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to comment? You can only be up at the podium once. No, it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on Commissioner's comment, I did take an inventory of, and I'll pass it out at the end of the meeting, it's in my car, a map of all the off-premise billboard locations in town, so you can kind of get a visual. It's not as good as that Google presentation I saw, but it's the CVB map of Dickinson with every location on it. Thought that might be helpful.
Definitely.
Mr. Derby, does that include the ones that you represent or all of the signs?
All of them, all, and it is, if you include the interstate and depending on how far you go out on 94 to the east, it was about 46 locations.
Thank you.
So it includes them all.
Anybody else like to comment? You can come up as many times as you want. Anybody else? Are there any other comments by city commissioners related to this item?
I'll just make one more.
Okay.
As progressive as we've been as a community and a commission, I would see us dropping the ball by not allowing electronic signs at some place in our community. It is the direction that signs are heading. We've been ahead of the curve for the most part in planning our community, making sure that Dickinson stays a quality place to live. I think when I drive by an old tattered billboard and think of it being replaced with an electronic one, I think that's a move in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Oldman. Other comments?
President Johnson, if I may. I had an opportunity to talk to Russ Hoff, who's the current county commission chair, and he shared with me that they would like to replicate as closely as they can our ordinance related to this issue. So I know that we do have county representation on our planning and zoning board, so I think it's an excellent referral, and they'll be able to provide that input. But I just wanted the commission to know that the county commission is also looking at the direction that we choose, because they will likely follow it as closely as they can.
And the county has approved an electronic sign in its area.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? All right, well then we'll move on to item 9, and that's just general comments by commissioners. Do you have any that you'd like to make? Okay, there are none. If there's anyone from the public that would like to address the commission on any item, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public, so the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries. We stand adjourned.